Okay, Mr. Meisner is trying to get on now. We lost track of time, so we'll wait a little bit and get him on and get started. Tom, do we have anybody here this evening representing Pedigo?
Yes, Mr. Jeff Niebler's on the line, and I believe Ryan Brady from Brady Science is on too.
Okay. I see Jeff. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Jeff, do you have another shop in Peninsula?
No, I just have the one we're going to open here in Sandusky.
Okay. There's one online that's listed in Peninsula, same name.
Well, that would be Pedigo Peninsula.
Okay.
So the store's going to be Pedigo Sandusky. Correct.
How's the supply chain working for you guys?
It's tight, but there's still inventory.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, we'll be able to open up with about 35 bikes, and then we'll have another 50 that will be due in 45 days or so.
Good.
Hey guys, this is Ryan. Sorry, I was having issues with the app, so I just used the call-in function.
Two meetings ago, we had an issue where some of us got dropped off the call. So two members, if that happens to you this evening, try to get through either to Kristen or Tom real quick so they can let us know. And we'll pause till we get you back on. Mr. Meisner is having technical trouble with his computer, so he's going to do the call in. Kristen, if you can look out for that call when it comes in.
Will do.
Sorry about that, folks. Tom, are you there?
Yes.
I noticed that the city commissioners decided to go back in person with their meeting in June. Is that correct?
Yes. And I believe Brendan is on as well, who may be able to answer any further questions. But I believe there'll be I'm assuming additional guidance, but we should, the plan at this moment is to expect to be in person in June for board and commission meetings.
Okay. All right. Let's remember to discuss that towards the end of the meeting tonight.
Mhm.
Mike Meinzer.
Is now joining.
It looks like another phone number just joined.
Hey, this is Mike, yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
Just by phone,
There
though.
we go.
It's right now.
Okay. We'll listen for you. Okay. I want to call to order the May 19, 2021 meeting of the Sandusky Landmark Commission. Roll call, please.
Dr. Berkey,
Present.
Commissioner Meinzer,
Here.
Mr. Griffiths,
Here, once I've unmuted.
Mr. Galea,
Here.
Mr. Nagel,
Here.
Mr. Whaley,
Here.
and Mr. Lawrence is absent today.
Correct. Okay, first item we've got is review of the April 21, 2021 meeting minutes. Do we have any changes? If not, may I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Second?
Seconded.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the April 21, 2021 meeting minutes approved by saying aye?
Aye.
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 Minutes approved.
Aye.
We have two applications this afternoon. The first being 131 East Water Street, Pedigo, Sandusky. Mr. Horsman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will bring the drawing up on the screen here. I just, hope everyone can see. This is at 131 East Water Street, a building that has been through this commission many, many times now. This is a contributing building in the downtown historic district, and the application is for an awning, which includes signage and painting of the windows and doors. And that is the request for the certificate of appropriateness. And I'll defer to Mr. Niebler, the applicant, to talk a little bit more about the project.
Well, sure. We're going to be opening up the Pedigo Sandusky Electric Bike Store, and we're going to offer sales, rental, and service. And we think it's going to be a real good opportunity for the city as well as us. My family is going to run the business, and we would like to do some freshening on the front of the building there with some black trim, and then stay with the off-white as the base color.
Questions from members? Can we hear how the awning is going to be
Mike
attached and
Meinzer.
secured? As we know, we get heavy
now
winds
exiting.
coming down through downtown. Can we hear a little bit about that, how it's going to be secured?
Yes, could I defer that to Ryan from Brady Signs?
Yes. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. So the awning itself, the framing will be aluminum tubing. But in terms of attachment, we use Z-clips and then bolt into the building. So the specific fastener that will be used usually will be determined. We'll do a survey before we actually install this to determine the right type of fastener or bolt that we need to use for the specific wall construction behind there. But it's an aluminum tubing with a Z-clip system.
Okay. Any questions, concerns from members? If not, may I have a motion to accept?
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the application.
Thank you. A second?
Seconded.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Galea. Any further discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Dr. Berkey?
Yes.
Commissioner Meinzer?
Yes.
Mr. Griffiths?
Yes.
Mr. Galea?
Yes.
Mr. Nagel?
Yes.
And Mr. Whaley?
Yes.
Motion passes. Congratulations, Jeff, and good luck with your business.
Yes, thank you all. Appreciate it, and hope to see you down there.
Okay, our second application is 333 West Market Street. I believe we have Connor and Tony with us. Is that correct? Anybody else representing? Oh, we have Mr. Fike here representing.
That's
as
correct.
well?
Mr. Fike is here as well, yes.
Okay. Okay, who's going to present?
I'll first start off. Can you hear?
Yes. Tony, do you have slides you're showing? Can't hear you now, Tony.
Tony, you're muted.
That better?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, we can hear. All right. Good evening, Commission, and we'd like to take a few minutes here to thank you for the opportunity to showcase our great plan before this committee. First off, we'd like to talk about our business approach. MAC Building Development has a system and a way we function. This process is developed and refined from our undergrad to our graduate studies to our years of experience as designers, builders, and educators. I personally hold a license through the state of Ohio that details this in my career field in education, and I also hold through the National Center of Construction, Education, and Research. I also hold a number of certification and class hours dedicated to the field and scope of design, engineering, fabrication, and construction. Therefore, we are not new to this type of work, and we understand the transparency to all parties to see the scope of this process succeeding. With that being said, we interviewed 3 architects and their firms. We choose Mr. Fike on the basis that he's an accomplished local architect and a structural engineer with a history of awesome structures throughout the city, Ohio, and across this land. The fact that Mr. Fike was a builder that has that background knowledge made him stand out above the rest in the field. This is something that many architects lack. You see this all the time, especially as a builder. This has been a problem due to our educational system that has been eroded over decades of nearsighted educational leadership. We would also like to state that along with the design process, which is the backbone of how we teach and solve problems within a system and how it marries to efficiency. We express efficiency as the most critical aspects of engineering a plan or design. We must maximize efficiency. Why? Because inefficiencies lurk around the corner. It happens in every facet, in every sector of business, education, construction, transportation, medical. And it happens between engineers and the designers and the mechanics that fix the components, architects that design, and the builders that execute the plan. Between an administrator, doctor, nurses, and patients, and on and on. And there's no surprise that happens in government. So how do we become as efficient as we can to limit these inefficiencies? Well, that's a tough approach, especially if you're as transparent as you may think. It happens. And especially in the year of 2020. We have not tried to sidestep or skate around this commission, but inefficiencies have brought us together before our first application. True, we were inefficient the first time we handed our application with lack of details, which was expressed by you, Mr. Chairman, for the 15 minutes through that first meeting. We were blindsided, that there was a design packet that nobody gave us, or a nice pamphlet of this process. We have been communicating with the city in many forms since we bought this building in 2019. We will not go into details or timelines because that's truly between our team and the city. That being said, we were very transparent as the members that took the time to meet with us saw our evidence of this. The juggernaut of inefficiencies has cost us time and money, and the building decays in front of our eyes since January. Many materials have doubled and tripled since then. We know the historical value of what we have, and we are no means trying to compromise this in any way. This is a beautiful historical building. Truly, we are rehabbing the historical structure that already exists on the rooftop and bringing them up to code. What we want is what everybody else was granted before us by this commission, past and present. I can promise you we'll be great. We are great at what we do. I am optimistic that the truth and the misinformation that was spread from uninformed people will see the new light and progress, and let's make this thing happen. We want people to enjoy our historical building and its views of the downtown. So we're going to present our slides. Give me 1 second, please.
Take your time.
Can they see the slides?
Turn your volume down. Are you muted?
Yeah, muted.
Am I on? Commission members, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, is that better?
There you go.
Yep.
All right. So the first few slides here that Tony's going to kind of flip through quickly, that's why we're kind of having trouble with volume here, is he's going to do the slideshow while I talk through it, kind of detail the history of the building, The one that you see in front of you there in the center is actually not our building. It's one that was built before ours that Mrs. Heminger copied when they built the Heminger Saloon that was recently highlighted in our local blog spot. It was a saloon or a boarding house or hotel of some sort until in the 1940s when Brennan's got it. That's the next one. Brennan's bought it, turned it into a hardware store. After that, it became a wallpaper and paint store, and then furniture store, and then the Now and Then shop. And now it's us. And we own it, and we intend to bring it back to its original purpose of a saloon on the first floor and boarding and residential on the second and third floor. As we go through the plan, we will highlight each of the exterior facades so that there's no questions as to what the plan is. What you see before you isn't really in your scope on the exterior, but it does have a lot to do with the decisions that we made. If you see there, the steel structure that now supports this building, we estimate happened when Brennan's took over the store, which was sometime from 43 to 47. You'll see in the little picture on the right there, the atrium, which was an opening through the roof that was having some water problems. And then where the elevator is in blue, that was the elevator doghouse that was through the roof, and it's still there. In fact, the doghouse we have is built around it. Also, as we go through this, one of the things that we talked about in our design was the in-between the elevator and the stairs, because honestly, the materials there in the roof had degraded, and it was a water problem spot no matter what. So we tried to cut off that water spot by making it all one building. This is the view of the existing atrium and elevator doghouse when we bought the building. And obviously, you see, we've kind of dressed up the images a little bit since the last time to make them more representative of the way that it will look when we are finished. This is the original proposal. We were going to do doors out of the original Fike, the Fike skyscraper in town that's being rehabbed in the front with an atrium. But through this process, we have learned some things and done some research, and now ours is going to be more of the, go ahead, all the way to the next one. Go all the way, or it's going to be more the high Victorian style. What you see there, the colors, as it says in the slideshow and in description of work, are going to be black, beige from the approved color list, and some copper highlights. So what you see there is black. Rather than building out with the awning, we're going to keep it flat with the sign being painted on there, and we're going to build side windows out of wood, and we're going to keep the door in the single entry in the center. Setback, we are going to change it from one door to two doors, but otherwise the entry, it'll be a similar design to what's there now. While this front facade is up, I want to go through the description of exterior work as was submitted with our plans this time to make sure there are no questions. So if you go back one picture, from the existing stone from the existing stone lintel up, the only changes are going to be the repainting of the cornice and decorative corbels at the top in the color palette that we just talked about. And eventually we want to switch out those double hung vinyl windows that were installed before we bought the property with new wood window or newly constructed wooden windows that match the original style and match the ones on the sides of the building that we are going to restore. from that stone lintel you see there down, that's going to be removed and rebuilt as the pictures were just showing. We will, it's kind of maybe hard to see on that last picture, but the posts where the steel are going to be brick, and then it'll be wood in between, and then the ramp that brings you from street level to interior level will be ADA approved, blind. The east elevation, is that what's next? Flip through here. So let me go to the north elevation. So on the ground level, the block will be painted in the same beige or made stucco to match and painted. So then if it's stucco, it'll either match the west elevation or the be painted the same beige color. The existing garage door that's there is going to be blocked in. That garage door is actually on the west elevation. We're going to put in a new wooden or metal man door and a new garage door. All in. The garage door is going to have windows, and it's going to all be black and trim. Above the first floor, the brick will be soft scrubbed and tuck pointed as the rear of the building requires this. The new doors that you see on the second and third floor will be black wood or metal, and the lintels above them will be sandstone made to match as close to the existing lintels as possible. The second and third floor decks will be constructed, framed out of black metal or black wood cased posts, and we'll have black rails with stainless steel cables. The decking will be for composite material. All the original lintels that exist there will remain unchanged. And we have added the awning above the third floor doors and windows to protect the windows and doors, as well as to soften the appearance of that rooftop doghouse that is there now that we've constructed so that we can access the rooftop deck. We think that it makes for a nice sight line from the north elevation, which is what you'll see, obviously, from down at here. Next one. So now the east elevation. The east elevation, the windows are going to be repaired or rebuilt with wood materials. The original windows are made of mahogany, so the ones, whatever we can keep, we're going to reuse, and we're going to fabricate new pieces from new mahogany and build them back as well as we can. The brick will be soft scrubbed on the east side as well and tuck pointed. The fire escape will be restored and extended so that it allows access from the rooftop deck all the way down to the ground. And again, all of the lintels will remain unchanged. We've debated, but we are leaning towards keeping the black metal skirting below the sight line of the deck from the east side, as you see on this elevation. From the west side, you can actually only see the third floor of this because the first and second floors are covered with the building. But the existing windows will be repaired or rebuilt and painted black, and the original lintels remain unchanged. And then you see the rooftop. I'm going to talk about that separately. So the pre-existing elevator doghouse and atrium rooftop access going to be reconstructed in order to protect the building from further deterioration between the existing structures where there was major water collection issues and damage. It'll be constructed to a height that will allow for eventual ADA accessibility through the elevator to the temporary accessory rooftop structure. This rooftop structure is in line with the city's updated master plan to activate and celebrate rooftops, and it allows for us to keep the pitched roof that is there. If we tried to go lower, that would have to change. In doing so, we've been able to keep that rooftop structure to a lesser prominence if you measured from the side of the building to the top of it, than other rooftop structures that have been approved by this board this year. And we've kept it low enough to not to change the appearance from the front. There was a picture on the last one. If you stand across the street on Market Street, in front of the building, you cannot see this. It does not interfere with the historic facade until you get over into the parking lot behind the register. The structure that you see will be sided in 6-inch fiber cement, painted with the beige from the city approved swatch to help soften the appearance. The windows will be black aluminum. All roofing material, both on the existing roof and on the doghouse, are going to be black metal. The deck beams and handrails will be constructed with black metal and stainless steel cable rail below. The work is going to take place in 3 phases. Phase 1 is going to be getting the 2nd and 3rd floors ready for rent, including restoring the windows on all of the sides except for the south or front elevation. Second phase will be to get the 1st floor ready, including the brew pub and front facade. Phase 3 will be to construct the rooftop deck. In regards to the historic standards, I'm not going to read the entire historic standards, but because you guys have this description of work submitted to you as well, but we see in regards to standard 1, we are returning the building to its exact original purpose. In regards to 2, there is 0 historical features being removed or altered through this renovation. In fact, the opposite is occurring. Historic windows are being preserved, and eventually the front windows to return to their original state. The brick facades are all being preserved, and the front facade is being returned to a more historically appropriate condition. In regards to standard 3, the storefront will be returned to a more appropriate treatment. It right now looks like it was done in the 40s, because it was. In regards to 5, all historic architectural features remaining will be preserved. 6, windows will be repaired. Masonry and decorative features will be preserved. Soft scrub tuck pointing will occur where needed on the east and north elevations. And finally, in regards to standard 10 additions, rooftop accessory was constructed so that a change in roof architecture is not required. I do apologize for the length of this presentation, but I want to make sure that I say what I have to say before we go on. So we'll go through this slideshow, and then I do have a few more words. Already covered that. This is one that was approved at the last meeting, including street views. Just a lot of the rest of this just kind of highlights what you see from our rooftop, which both shows why we so much want to enjoy that rooftop and why we see it as unjust to not be able to have a rooftop deck. When you look at all of the pictures there of all of the rooftop structures in town, or even within view from our rooftop. Again, ours has less prominence than some of these that you see on these. Okay, so I too want to thank those that have supported allowing us another opportunity to bring our plan to bring to life the Heminger Saloon. It was not a given that we would get a chance to present this, so I appreciate those of you that supported it. We appreciate each of you present today for taking some time to meet with us to discuss our plans and help us refine into the plan you see today. We're here today asking for the freedom to continue to be transparent, responsible neighbors in our rehabilitation of the property at 333 Market Street. Property we are proud and happy to enjoy. Our plan is to return the building to its original use while enjoying the proximity to our Great Lake, but it is a reason that so many of us choose to call Sandusky home. Our plan, including the rooftop structure, does fall in line with the city's updated master plan to celebrate rooftops, and it is well within the scope of what has been approved by this board. Our plan involves no loss of historical character, and in fact, enhances the historical character of the building and preserves it as well. It is going to help beautify the block it sits on. As owners of the property, it's up to us to construct and execute a plan to make this happen in a time frame and budget that is cost effective. We're asking you to allow us to do that. While we may not have the means to invest in producing and paying people to produce pretty documents to persuade this board of our appropriateness, we did hire an accomplished local architect with generations of local building experience, and he did file on our behalf a full set of stamped building plans in early October. We received word around that time from an outside plans examiner that a list of issues must be addressed before our final approval. None of these issues was related to the rooftop. And it also included a recommendation for partial approval. We began working towards making the finished product reality as we believed we were allowed to do so. We even had the footings for the rooftop structure inspected on October 12th. We may not be big-time developers that some on this board would like to see, but we have done quite a bit of work we are proud of here locally, and we are more than competent builders with a portfolio of projects here in town. As locals, we take extreme pride in making this project right, and while we're not here to prove ourselves as responsible builders, the response we received at the last meeting makes it appropriate to share more about ourselves. We are both committed to Sandusky and its growth. We've both taught and coached in Sandusky City Schools for over a decade. I'm a lifelong resident who's volunteered for local government. I've done so out of a sense of civic duty and to do my part to ensure that our local government retains common sense and fairness, like what we're asking for today, rather than in trying to impose personal values and causing undue constraints on responsible acting private investors trying to beautify our community. I believe a majority of this commission are made up of people that feel this way, and thankfully that we get to make this decision locally. I have rehabbed multiple homes in town, including my 100-year-old home that I live in. And Tony and I both consider ourselves the kind of guys that pull our weight and add value to the communities that we live in. The property at 333 Market Street will be cared for continuously and improved throughout my lifetime, as both Tony and I consider it our slice of heaven, particularly when we are enjoying the rooftop. To reiterate a couple highlights, we have a good plan to restore and rejuvenate the Heminger Saloon. I know it doesn't look great up there unfinished in Tyvek as it sits now. I hope you'll not factor that current appearance into your decision today. We are returning the plan to its original use. We do have neighbor support, as we have reached out to neighbors and talked with them. We have learned lessons from this process. Beyond just procedural maneuvering, we have done some research that's led to changes in our plan, including a commitment to restoring the wooden windows and to returning the storefront to a design more aligned with the Hyatt Victorian style. We've added an awning on the back to soften the appearance of the rooftop accessory and to provide cover for the doors. And we plan to do as many others in town are and will do and enjoy our rooftop views as the master plan suggests. From a rooftop that we hope is able to be ADA compliant. Sorry for taking up so much of your time. I'll turn it over to you guys now.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. I first want to say and express appreciation to focusing on the historical standards. You've done an exemplary job of doing that. No need to apologize and how much time it took you. I want to go back to something Tony expressed, and that was frustration with presenting to us the first time and feeling that you weren't prepared adequately. And I think as a commission, we need to take some ownership in that. We have two issues, I think, to address as commission members, and one of them is on our agenda this evening, and that is we need to go back and take a look at the application. The present application really doesn't guide you through the historical expectations that someone coming before us for the first time needs. You were at a disadvantage that evening because you were presenting the same evening as frequent flyer applicants who are used to the process and therefore knew what to expect. And so we're going to correct that. And the other piece that I would suggest to commissioners later this evening when we discuss other issues is we need to provide also some information to applicants on how to present, what to expect in the meeting. So when someone like Connor and Tony come into the meeting, they know what they're walking into and how to be prepared for that. So good job on your presentation. I'm going to make a suggestion to commission members. This is the second proposal. It has several changes to address the historical preservation as they relate to the standards, as the applicants have stated. The rooftop structure has been the most challenging issue. So I'm going to suggest to my colleagues that maybe the way we should approach this in a better way is to first examine the changes that they are proposing to the facade, east, north, and west elevations first, determine what to consider, make motion or motions, and proceed from there with some areas of approval that we can do, and then follow up with a separate consideration of the rooftop. Are we agreeable to that, gentlemen?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
appropriate to speak. I haven't had any discussions with any of you in between meetings, but you're kind of on the same thought process I am. I said the main goal as the landmark is to preserve this building at least for another 25 years, and it seems like these applicants are doing a great job at that. You know, tuck pointing, the sandstone, and the windows and the facade, all are great. So I would like to see us, you know, take that part of it and try to let them go forward working. And my biggest problem with this is, and I saw the drawings that Mr. Fike, who was a contractor with the city, he presented drawings of April of last year. I saw the inspection where city inspectors inspected the place. It's obvious that anybody that knew that work was going on, because I wasn't even in town and I was hearing about it. So I would like to, my personal opinion is I'd like to separate the two. The one, and Tony mentioned it early, he wasn't aware there was there were packets, or he wasn't aware of procedures. So that's a problem systemically in the city. That all these people that in the city that had their fingers on this should know what the process is, and direct these applicants and these business people and these contractors in the correct direction. And it seems like that's where we keep stalling. And I don't think it's fair for a volunteer board of people that are looking, or their goal is to preserve historical buildings, and come to them a year later and ask for a certificate of appropriateness to put something that wouldn't meet the guidelines. So I would like to say, let the city commission address the rooftop bar. Just appeal it to city commission. And I know, talking to city commissioners, it's going to fly, because city commissioners are desperate and city administration is desperate for development downtown. They're desperate that it will go. I think that it is unfair for a board like this with parameters set to come back and ask mea culpa. Please forgive me, we're going to do this. So I like everything they're doing, and I don't see, like these guys say, there's rooftop bars all over the place. If these rooftop bars extend the life of these buildings another 25, 30 years, that's the goal, I think. It might be like shag carpet in 30 years. In Europe, it may be like 50 years they're looking for. So as long as the buildings are preserved, I think as this commission, we should look at that. And if there's something outside the bounds, if you, the rest of you, don't feel comfortable with passing that, then we should do it as city commissioners, as city administrators. And that, to me, that's the only way that we're going to get the processes and all the paperwork and the procedures done. Because if we keep doing this and going forward, we're going to do this over and over and over, because people are going to build all over the city right now. They want to build here. So there has to be a process first. So that's my 2 cents. So I'll listen to the rest of you.
Are we agreeable to move forward now and first take a look at the exterior changes, the facade and the other 3 sides of the building, and walk through those and see what approvals we can do?
Mr. Chairman, I just have one question, which is, I don't know what our legal position is to subdivide an applicant's application. The applicant had the option to bring 2 separate applications. They chose not to. Chose to bring 1 application. Like I said, I'm not the lawyer. I don't know. I don't know if you've spoken to the law director about this in any way, but it may be. I don't know what our remit is in terms of amending applicants' applications.
Okay. In the past, we have done that. We have separated pieces out and voted separately on applications. You might not recall, but we have done that. I don't see anything in the regulations that prohibit us from doing that. Anybody else weigh in on that?
This was at the HD Tony's project last April. There were a number of items that were approved by this commission and some that were not. So that is something that's historically been done by this commission, as you pointed out.
Anything else?
Okay.
Yeah, and just from my perspective, just to chime in to answer Alan's question, it's appropriate. I mean, it would just be like approving a portion or denying a portion of an application. It's just a procedural mechanism to do that.
Thank you. Okay, well, why don't we start then with the order in which they presented. Let's go to the front facade and see if see if members have questions. I've got a couple. With the facade, gentlemen, I assume that the replacement windows on the upper floors will be painted white.
No, I'm curious.
On the upper floors, the framed windows that you're going to replace, not the ground level, but
right. Everything is going to be the beige. All of the windows are going to be the beige.
Black.
I'm sorry, black.
So all of those windows will be black.
Correct. When they are replaced.
Okay. And then the only other thing is we've had this issue from time to time with applicants. Our commission will approve something. Then when you go to do the work, and this is specifically acute to your challenge when you start to remove the ground level front of the facade, you have plans now, but as you know, something can happen. And when you take that down, you might have to change your plan. Can you commit to, if that happens and you can't complete your plan for the ground level as you have presented it to us, that you'll come back with just that portion to our commission with drawings and review it with us and put it on an application?
Yep.
Did I hear a yes?
Yes, you did.
Thank you.
Yes.
Other members, do you have questions? Any other questions about their plans for the south elevation, the front facade? Or concerns?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Question for the applicant. Just looking at the rendering where the sign band is currently shown on the building, I don't mind the design of the storefront. However, that sign band doesn't say to me High Victorian. It still kind of has that 1940s look to it. Is there any, you guys haven't presented any wood profiles or anything. Is there gonna be a profile on that wood, or is that just a 1x4, band around it, or is it just all flat? It's hard to tell by the drawing that was shown.
Wow. All right. So there's I-beams up there. There's beams in there. I mean, you've seen that from that one slide. We don't know exactly what's really behind that. So it does drop down the high Victorian of where it was originally at. We can't do anything about that because of where the steel I-beams are located. So we're kind of, you know,
I think his question is more, is it going to be flatter, or are we going to put trim outside on the sign?
Oh, trim around the sign?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, we're going to trim around.
Other concerns?
To answer your question?
Yes. Thank
You got two.
Dude, I'm going to do it.
Did we have another question or concern? No?
We're going to trim around the sign. I'm not sure if you heard that or not. We got his shut off now that we don't need to present anymore, and we'll just both be on the same screen. Hopefully reduce that feedback. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else on the front facade? Okay, let's go to the east elevation.
Sorry, is there a way that we can, as we go through these, have it shown on the screen? I don't know if Tom or whoever can show what we're talking about here, just to, so we can reference things.
I can throw them up. Yeah, give me 1 moment.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, before we get much further, as we kind of have a little lull in the conversation, it was not clear to me, and through you, Mr. Chair, to staff, if staff was taking any position on the certificate of appropriateness recommendation for or against, because I did not see what looked like a recommendation. I just saw a discussion. So did I read that correctly, Mr. Horstman?
Yeah, there was no objection to certificate of appropriateness.
No objection. Okay.
Okay, back to Ryan. Did you have a question or comment?
Nope. I just wanted to see the elevations as we went through them.
Okay. And of course, the fire escape extension and black metal skirting is only if we approve the rooftop at this point, correct? Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing that.
The fire escape will still be there. It just won't extend to the roof.
Okay. Okay. Anything else on the east elevation? I got a question. Maybe Mr. Fike will address this. In terms of attaching those, coming up with the word, the decks to the side of the building, how are those being attached? And I guess I'm raising the question of how structurally sound the brick is. If you got people on those things, has anybody examined the soundness of the brick?
We have not taken any brick out and done any sampling of them, but the brick themselves appear to be in very good condition. There's two different types of brick on buildings like this. The brick on the outside tends to be a little bit more hard-fired brick. The brick on the inside is more of a softer brick. So what's attached to is the outer layer, which is, and I've been up that fire escape. It for what's there is solid. Just needs some welding and some a couple more brackets to hold the rails on.
Thank you. Anything else on the east elevation? All right, let's go to the north elevation. Questions for our applicants on the north elevation? Anything there? Okay. And again, I'd have the same question, Mr. Fike, about, those decks on the backside of the building, since nothing has been placed there before, like fire escapes, correct?
That's correct. The existing roof of the first story, the concrete block structure there, is going to be the floor of the second floor deck, and then everything else above that will be all new structure, supported both off the roof and then against the wall.
Okay. Any other comments, questions on the north elevation? None? Okay, if not, let's go to the west. We've got window repair. They'll be painted black. Lentils will remain unchanged. Can you guys talk to us a little bit about the lentils, the condition of those? Is there any restoration work on any of the lentils around the building being done?
No, they're in good shape. When we get up in Tuck Point, the north and the east sides, we'll take a look at the mortar around them, but the lentils themselves are in great shape.
Okay. Okay, I think that takes us the whole way around the building. Any further questions for the applicants? Does someone want to make an motion on the proposed changes to the facade, east, north, and west elevations?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I don't have a question, but I guess my question would be for you or the rest of or Mr. Horstman. If we approve the facade and the rest of the elevations, can they start work immediately, or is the building department ready to give them a permit?
I don't know about the building department. Maybe Tom knows, but that's the next step. It would be getting your building permits and going to work.
Through Mr. Chairman, I don't know specifically. The applicants may have a better sense of that. But for as far as zoning and landmark goes, they would be good to go.
Okay.
If I can answer that question for you, Mr. Chairman, the original drawings that were submitted in October finally got reviewed. There were questions. Additional drawings were submitted. We have a second letter came back from them with the first floor, second floor, third floor, all receiving conditional approval. There are three items outstanding yet that we need to cover. One is a sprinkler system, and one is they requested a specific structural inspection, which I've already done but haven't written a letter on it. And the third item was a dimension missing on, I believe, the third floor, one of the hallways. And as soon as we get all those, we're actually ready to start. We specifically asked them to exclude everything from the roof up, as we didn't want to do anything until the landmark had weighed in on it.
Sure.
So they are actually right now can do all the construction inside the building, and with your approval on the facade, they can start the outside, with the exception of the roof.
Okay.
And actually not the roof, but exception of the patio for the rooftop structure.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would make a motion that we approve the applicant's presentation or drawings from the gutters down, basically, and just document that we encourage that the staff moves forward with expediting the construction from the gutters down. And also, I kind of like Mr. Nagy's idea of showing a little more trim and a little more design, Victorian design on the sign.
Can I say something here?
Yes, go ahead.
It's very hard because to do what we have to do inside, because the stairwells requires double 8 drywall, and without that structure on top, we're kind of in limbo because it would just leak, and we're at a situation where we got to figure that out. We can't build the stairways because it requires fireproof double 8s, 5/8 drywall. So we're trying to figure that out. I mean, how are we going to do anything if it's always leaking?
Sure. Okay, so the motion on the table is to approve all of the first part of the presentation, the facade east, north, and west elevations. Is that correct, Mike?
It was. I'm willing to withdraw it, and if we want to address the rooftop first, we could go that route.
No, I think let's just stick with
All right.
the order that we.
I did make a motion that we address the facade and the 3 floors, and then
Okay.
we go from there. I didn't get a second, but
May I have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Any further discussion, commission members? Are we ready to vote? Roll call, please.
Dr. Berkey,
Yes.
Commissioner Meinzer,
yes.
Mr. Griffiths,
Yes.
Mr. Galea,
Yes.
Mr. Nagel,
Yes.
Mr. Whaley,
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. All of that work can move on to getting your appropriate building permits and starting your work. Okay, on to the rooftop. Let's start with questions about the rooftop design that members have.
Mr. Chairman, I have an observation and a question through you for Mr. Fite. The observation is that this building has clearly had a rooftop structure for a long time. Draw members' attention to the picture in our packet entitled 333 West Market Through the Years, which appears to show the building in the 40s with a rooftop sign that says Brennan's, and in the back corner from the east elevation, you can see the top of the doghouse, essentially, as it existed at the time. So I just wanted to make that observation. And then secondly, for the architect, for Mr. Fite, the design that has been put forward for a deck on the rear half of the roof, would you characterize that design as something that alters the permanent architecture of the building, or could it be considered in some way removable / temporary?
The structure itself is all sits above the roof, but it will be tied through the roof just for waterproofing purposes. At some point in the future, if they wanted to take it down, it would be physically possible to do that, yes.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Question for the applicant. What is your guys' all-in cost for construction of the rooftop deck itself, including the doghouse?
Yet to be determined with the prices of materials.
When you priced it up originally?
I'd say roughly 80.
Other questions, comments? I'm going to jump in here and share a couple of comments. One is the issue of a temporary structure. The problem with labeling it temporary is if we would approve the rooftop structure and this notion of a temporary, we have no jurisdiction over that going forward. A good example is the advertising sign that is on the southeast corner of the building. That sign is there. We have no ability to say to these owners, take it down. It's a visual impairment to the building, doesn't go with the building, but we have no jurisdiction over that. And that's the problem with calling something temporary. Once we approve it, it's forever in the hands of the owner or anybody the owner sells to going forward. And we see plenty of examples of that around the city where something was done to a building, but once it's been approved, you can't go back. I want to ask Tom to bring up my picture slides that I submitted to him, starting with slide 1.
Give me a second. I'm trying to.
Yeah, take your time.
Load.
Mr. Chairman, while we're waiting, I would just note that the use of the word temporary may be misleading. You know, we've used that in the past, particularly with the last rooftop bar that we looked at. But the guidelines clearly say, Secretary of State Interior guidelines number 10 clearly say that the new additions and adjacent or related new construction shall be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property and its environment would be unimpaired. I guess that's what I'm referring to when I use the word temporary. So let me just rephrase that and confirm, I think, with the architect that would be the case, that if this deck was removed in the future, the form and integrity of the property would still be unimpaired.
Right.
Yeah, I can confirm that because the existing structure, we're not going to be removing anything of the existing building. Everything's to be built on top. So it physically could be removed and returned exactly the way it was a year ago.
Okay, slide 1 is, I know the applicants were concerned that one of the previous pictures that was shared was from the parking lot across the street. The standards, if you look at Tom's recommendation, he refers to ITS 47 brief on rooftop additions on historic buildings. And the standards say that these are not to be highly visible from the public right-of-way. In most cases, rooftop additions should not be more than 1 story generally, and are not appropriate for buildings consisting of 3 stories or less. So the problem with rooftops in general is the standards really discourage putting any kind of a rooftop structure on a 3-story building due to the visibility issue. And so I took some slides and I stood in the street to take those in the right-of-ways so that whether you're in a car or you're pedestrian, looking at the view of this rooftop structure. So the first one is at Columbus and Market. Tom, if we go on to the second one. That is Market and Jackson. Again, highly visible. If you go to slide 3, that's standing in Water Street looking at the building to the south, the back of the building, highly visible again. If you go to slide 4, that's at Market Street in front of, if you know where Southern Title is. I stood in the street in front of Southern Title, very close to the building. Again, highly visible. And then slide number 5. Slide number 5 is Market and Decatur looking east. Again, extremely visible there. Here's the problem. If you look at that slide, the problem, and this is addressed also in another standard in the ITS number 36, which specifically addresses rooftop additions, speaks to the fact that sometimes you can get away with these types of structures in heavily dense, urban, populated with buildings. If you have tall buildings on either side, the problem with this building is you've got 2-story buildings on either side. There's no way to hide this. And so what I want to point out is there's no fuzziness regarding the application of this standard. Standards 2, 5, and 9 just don't permit this to happen. So I go back to what Joe shared, no, I'm sorry, what Mike shared at the beginning of the meeting. And that was, I think, because of the concerns that have been expressed in the community, and more importantly, the fact I would point out to my colleagues, I really sincerely don't believe that we have the authority as a commission to go outside the standards that were given to us by the city commissioners when they established the Landmark Commission. I don't think we have that ability to do that. I believe that this really belongs in front of city commissioners. I believe that sooner than later, the applicants need to take the rooftop part of this application, because everything else has been approved, and do the same kind of presentation they did with us, appeal to the views of the city commissioners. And here's why. All of us, including city administration, staff, and us as members of the city commission, are appointees. We serve the city commission. The city commissioners are the voice of the people. They are elected officials. So you have to ask yourself, you know, if the public, does the public have a say in this? And I would make the case that absolutely they do. The historical buildings in Sandusky, the historical aspect of those belong to the residents of the city. You know, back in the 70s, the Old House Guild did a tremendous inventory that we'll talk about later this evening of all of the historic buildings in the community. They put a lot of work into it. They put a lot of work into then applying and designating certain buildings to be listed on the National Registry. The problem for our owners is twofold. This sits on the National Registry, which makes it unique. Secondly, it's a 3-story building surrounded by 2-story buildings that just make it impossible to meet the standards regarding the fact that the visibility issue. So what I'm suggesting to the commission is, I think only the city commissioners, because they have the ability to change their rules, they have the ability to make an exception to the standards that they gave us. I think only they can do that. And I think under these circumstances, it appropriately belongs in front of them because they are accountable to the citizens. You know, if we would go ahead and approve this and go outside the standards, I think the criticism that would be fair upon us as members of this commission would be, well, wait a minute, who allowed you to go outside the standards and approve this? Whereas if the city commissioners review this and they say to the owners, okay, we're going to make an exception and say yes to your rooftop bar, they can do that because they're the legislative body that have been elected by the city, by the citizenry. And so I strongly believe that's where it goes. And so this evening, I'm going to be voting no on the rooftop portion of this for two reasons. One is it doesn't comply with the standards due to visibility. And two, that I don't believe we have the ability to say yes to this because this belongs in front of the city commissioners. If they want to change their standards, that's their right. They can do that. I don't think we can.
Mr. Chair, make one quick comment.
This is a discussion among the commission members right now. Applicants, please. Members, weigh in because I am promoting the notion of this needs to go on to the city commissioners.
Mr. Chairman, Ryan Wade.
Yes.
I respectfully disagree with you. Certainly, if we followed every standard, then we wouldn't even need a commission. Our job is to discuss the variance in those standards, particularly in a city like Sandusky that's growing. I think that these guys did a wonderful job of doing their research, going back and doing the due diligence. And as you can see, that their plan, I think they did something that looks like would be very difficult to do and make it look respectful and nice. They did a great job of looking around the city and finding plenty of examples that are outside of the standards. And as they talked about the city with the master plan and rooftops, that is accurate. That is one of the goals of the Sandusky master plan, is to be a rooftop community. So we might have to bend the rules on that. Now, my opinion is different as far as it goes to city commission or not. I will be voting yes on this because I do think that they've done the job and that it does fit in with other examples in the city. And I do not think it's going to be an eyesore by any means, particularly when they got into the colors and things like that. I think it's going to be a great addition to a building that has the potential to sit there forever in a rapidly developing community.
Okay. Others?
Mr. Chairman, I think my view is similar. Well, I would also respectfully disagree with a couple of your points. I don't see in my reading of the standards that the standards prohibit this, where the construction meets the requirements of the standards, which I believe this does. In terms of the issue of precedence, this commission has already approved a rooftop structure not dissimilar to this on a 3-story building next to an empty lot downtown. And I think that we did that recently in the understanding that it met the standard. So my view, I guess, would be that while I appreciate the role that the city commission has, as you've outlined, in terms of overruling this commission's decisions in the greater economic good of the city, or even the greater public good of the city, I don't think this is one of those cases. I will also be voting to approve this rooftop deck because I feel like it does fit within the remit of what we've been asked to do.
Thank you. Others?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I mean, I think I showed my cards before, but I'm going to vote no. And as a landmark commission member, and I'll probably vote yes as a city commissioner. This, I just feel that it compromises the integrity of what I didn't appoint any of you, but you were appointed to hold the charge, to hold the standards for historical buildings. And I mean, Mr. Horstman even said in the last meeting that it wasn't allowed on a 3-story building. So it would take city commission approval to make this happen. Going forward, as Sandusky gets more popular, and as we develop more historical buildings, I would like to model it after Europe, that it holds the integrity and keeps it. I don't want this to look like North Carolina with a bunch of tacky signs and surf shops on the beach. I'd rather that it looked had some character. And as a city commissioner, I don't want to look like Detroit with a bunch of great, grandiose buildings with burnout windows in it. So I think as a commissioner, I'm going to compromise and say, heck yeah, these guys are doing a good job. They're preserving this building. I like what they're doing. But I'm just going to vote no because I'm paramilitary. I always had enforced standards my whole career, and that's my mindset. So that's where I'm at. I apologize to applicants. I think they're doing a great job. But when you lay out the parameters in front of me, I have to vote no.
Thank you. Others?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
You know, my opinion on this one hasn't changed since our last meeting because, in my opinion, the design hasn't changed. You know, this commission didn't vote for this the first time around, and you know, the roof skirt, the deck. You know, if one of you guys can explain to me how this didn't meet the standards then, and all of a sudden it does and it's supported, I'd like to hear it. But you know, as a landmark commission, you know, and me having professionally done tens of millions of dollars worth of historic tax credit deals, this would never fly. I mean, if these guys were doing this as a tax credit project, forget it. It's not happening. It never would. I get the rationale for bending the rules in this instance, but I would also say, you know, if this is going to city commissioners and they feel it's going to be a layup, I said this on the last one, they should have done it already and went around us. And I would also say on the record to the city commissioners, if they're going to, if we vote against this and it gets denied and they turn around and just and vote for it, I don't know why we're all sitting here on this call. It's 80 degrees, the lake's calm, we could be on boat rides right now, honestly. I mean, there's other stuff to be doing. You know, we're in charge of upholding the standards. The commissions gave us that authority. If they're going to turn around and go the other way on it, I honestly don't know why we're all sitting here. You know, I understand the frustration from the applicants, and I get it. There are other instances around town where this commission has voted for it. You know, for an example, the one that was voted on a couple months ago. I didn't vote for it, but you know, this happens all the time. An architect, a developer gets in a squeeze, they miss something, you know, they have to add an ugly doghouse and we go along with it. I didn't personally, but it happens. You know, this is happening too much, and if this goes, there is no line in the sand anymore. I mean, this sets a precedent that you cannot walk back, and this is going to continue, and we cannot say no to another one of these, no matter what it looks like, moving forward, period. I mean, you might as well say, do whatever you want in regards to rooftop because it's in the city plan, and not even put it on our agendas anymore, honestly. And you know, it's unfortunate for the applicant that they've seemingly been given a runaround. I don't know if they've been given a sense of, you know, a false sense of this is going to fly by people in the city or not. You know, I don't know, but you know, as a commission, I don't see how this can be permitted to move forward as presented.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, I need a motion to
Mr. Chairman,
approve.
can I speak again?
Yes, I'm sorry.
I just want to say,
Yes.
there was no more chatter than from other city commissioners when this was being built. And I think it is political. And the only way, and the part of the reason I'm gonna vote no is out of respect for this commission to move forward and be able to do their jobs and hold the standards. Like I agree with Mr. Nagel. If the city of Sandusky does not want a landmark commission, they should just do away with it. If they don't care about the buildings or any of the architecture or the history, they could do away with it immediately. And the Old House Guild and the Historical Society and all these other people could just try to fight it out. But my thoughts are voting no is to bring this to the forefront, to the commission. Here's a problem. There's some administration staff, whatever it is, and the applicants, it's not their problem. I agree. Mr. Fike did that drawing in April of 2020. I saw the stamp. and I saw a city's inspector stamps. Like, actually, I wish Tony and Connor didn't even have to be in this conversation, but it's a public, transparent meeting. So I'm just going to say the only reason this gets vetted out is at the commission level. What do we want to do as a city moving forward? What do we want the administration to do? What do we want the Historical Society? What do we want the Old House Guild? What do we want our developers to do? If we don't want to hold the standards, then that's where we decide. Not at this level, though. I don't think it's fair to Mr. Nagel to be not going out on his boat today. I agree.
Mr. Meinzer.
Connor, point of order. This is a discussion between the commissioners right now, sir. Thank you. We haven't heard from Mr. Galea. Do you have any other comments before we ask for a motion?
I think a lot of what I would add to this conversation has been stated by others. I do think that prior to a vote, we should give the applicants a chance to maybe address some points we've made. I will say I do think it's appropriate for us to consider the application. I don't know that I think we always have to any application put to us, we always have the ability to say yes or no. And if we think that the problem with voting yes is that we're being asked to maybe flout standards, then I think we need to vote no, make that clear as part of our deliberative process, and then at that point the city commission can make the decisions they need to make. I'm going to vote yes, kind of reluctantly. I do have some issues with what's being proposed. A lot of Mr. Nagel's points are taken as far as what our ability to say no to in the future is going to be compromised. But I think when you look at the totality of the circumstances, it's difficult for me to say no. I don't know that in point of fact it will matter much. I don't know if there's I think we're actually deadlocked from what I can tell. So I don't know that it'll make a big difference, but this is not an easy decision either way. I wish the city commission gave us a clearer mandate as to what they want to see, because I think the point is taken that Landmark might be getting put into positions which wasn't intended to be, and when you have this kind of rash of rooftop development, I don't know that was foreseen when this body was put together. I just don't. And it's all the rage, and I get it. And then you have, the pressure of the master plan, which I understand and I'm generally in favor of. And certainly Mr. Whaley's been somebody who's brought a lot of vitality to the downtown through his involvement with rooftop structures. So, I get all that and can appreciate that. But at the same time, it seems like we're being put at the forefront of this kind of maybe community discussion, as you point out, Dr. Berkey, and it's kind of like, was that really what we were formed to do? My guess is no. I think we were formed to, make sure that these historic landmarks get preserved and then redeveloped in an appropriate way. And I think there's a lot of the general application I like, which is one of the reasons I seconded the motion to support the vertical elevations. I'm not completely enthusiastic about this rooftop design, but I think there's enough there that I could vote yes to a motion to approve the application.
Great. Thank you. May I have a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, just quickly before we get there, I have one more intervention. I'd just like to clarify, in the light of Mr. Nagel's comments, the reason why I'm actually changing my vote on this, because I did vote no for it last time. The two reasons for me are, one, that I was not aware last time that there was pre-existing structure on the roof. It's clear from the photographs that there's been a structure on that roof for a very long time, certainly back to the 40s. and I acknowledge the applicant's requirement or the necessity of the applicants to enclose the atrium that's there as well. The second thing for me that changes it is the addition of the black metal awning and the skirting, which totally changes the profile in this application from the previous one. I would not be of the position that any and all future rooftop structures or decks or whatever that come to this commission would automatically be approved in the future. I think there are clear and objective ways for us to assess whether or not they fundamentally affect the architecture and structure, original architecture and structure of the building. And it's my view that in this case, this does not.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'd like to make one more comment that is this does show, your us talking about streamlining the process. I think that's great, and this gives us some examples of that. Number two, I think this discussion also shows the exact reason we have a landmark commission. We clearly have some passionate people on this board that really care about the future of this community, whether they agree or not. So I think this is important, and it's nice that we're having this healthy discussion as we move forward, particularly as the city grows and this growth point in the city. So that's it.
Thank you, Ryan. May I have a motion to accept the rooftop proposal?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the rooftop additions or the rooftop structures as part of this application.
May I have a second?
I second.
May I speak?
Connor?
Yes.
Okay. We don't usually do this, but I'm going to allow it under the circumstances. Go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate that. This is really in regards to the visual aspect of the rooftop and the kind of line of argument that this would stop you from being able to draw a line in the stand, and perhaps mostly to disagree with respectfully Mr. Meinzer about the idea that this needs to go to the commission. I don't really appreciate being the example that needs to be the one that pushes this conversation to the forefront. This is obviously an example that this commission can vote no on rooftops after previously voting yes, because on 3/17, Mr. Meinzer included, voted yes for the rooftop building at that Brian Casper is doing. And I did just email Tom Horseman a picture of it from Jackson Street Pier. It is every bit as visible. In fact, the one that's there now is every bit as visible, and the one that's going in is 11 feet taller. And it is also next to an entity lot, and it is also on a 3-story building, and it is also outside of the standards as you have interpreted them here today. So it is up to you, Mr. Meinzer, to interpret the standards here. And if you choose to do it differently than the last time, that's up to you.
Okay.
That's all.
All right. Any other final discussion?
Mr. Berkey or Dr. Berkey, if I could just real quick.
Yes.
One thing that's nice about the city of Sandusky is in them appointing a nice landmark commission with city residents or people who have a great interest in the city residents, is it makes you a lot different than if we were making a presentation to this, historic preservation down in Columbus. They have to use the Secretary of Interior's rehab guideline, or they're not guidelines, they're their standards. What's the Landmark Commission here, if you read exactly what it says, is you're given guidelines to go with, not standards. So you have the opportunity to interpret those and say, in this specific instance, we don't have to go and see everything as black and white. We can look at it as there's some gray areas here, and this is an area here that we can overlook because I think to me it's awful difficult to look at guidelines and say, wow, we could do almost anything. It's not the case. You look at your guidelines, and the standards are part of those, but it gives you the opportunity to look at certain things and vote a different direction. And I think this is one of those that gives you the opportunity I think it's one of the reasons why there's a landmark commission, that we're given guidelines only rather than rigid standards. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. And I don't want to say this on behalf of the commission. We work hard. We pay attention to those standards. And in the 3 years I've been on this commission, we have said no on the average of 1 time a year to all the applicants that come through. So we really work hard and work through issues and pay very close attention to the standards. It's not like that we look at the standards and say, well, got you on this one, got you on that one. That's just not the case. That's not the history of this commission. They've put a lot of work into this. Okay, with that, any other final comments from commission members?
Mr. Chair,
go ahead.
One minor clarification. I believe Mr. Griffith said that the metal skirt around the deck is one of the reasons he changed his vote on this. Am I mistaken, or was that metal skirt shown in the previous presentation as well, or has it changed? It's hard to tell on the images shown, but I believe
it was not.
Applicants?
It was not.
It was or was not, Connor?
Was not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, roll call, please.
Dr. Berkey?
No.
Mr. Lawrence? Oh, he's not here, sorry. Commissioner Meinzer?
No.
Mr. Griffiths?
Yes.
Mr. Galea?
Yes.
Mr. Nagel?
No.
And Mr. Whaley?
Yes.
Okay, we have a 3-3 vote, which means the rooftop portion of this application fails approval. Owners, again, I just want to say you did an excellent job of presentation. You brought a lot of good changes to your plan. Your next step is to file an appeal within the 10 days to the city commissioners. It sounds like you've already got 1 vote in your pocket. Good luck to you, and thank you for being with us this evening.
One more question, please.
Yes.
In your guys' standard in the packet, it talks about the people, the architect has to be a resident of the Erie County. Mr. Nagel is not a resident of Erie County.
Point of order, Tony. That's inappropriate discussion for this commission point as an applicant. Sorry, sir. That's out of line. We're not doing that.
Well, that's what this
we're moving on with our agenda. And I know the hour is late, so if members of the commission are okay with this, I'm just going to run real quickly through the rest of the agenda items to get you out of here. And maybe, Tom, do we have any applications for June? The deadline was today.
I will need to check. I know there was one person I believe I was in communication with, but we'll confirm that.
Okay, so the deadline was today, so did we or did not get an application?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yes, no, there was one. There was a signage application that was submitted that will be going to the commission as opposed to staff administrative approval. So yeah, there is at least one.
Have one. So what I propose to members is the rest of the agenda items, please review those. If you're acceptable to delaying those until our June meeting so we can have a full throttle discussion, let's do that. I would ask that you pay particular attention to the draft of the certificate of appropriateness application that was put together. Put your eyes on that and the rest of the items. Tom, do you have any reports to share?
I do not. There were no administrative approvals this past month.
Okay, so members, from my understanding, what Tom shared at the beginning of our meeting, that the expectation is that our next meeting is in person. Is that correct, Tom?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I would say that would be the assumption at this point. The city will be sending further guidance based on If there are opportunities for members to participate virtually or not, that guidance will be provided, but they should be expected to be an in-person meeting at City Hall in June.
Okay. Any other business? May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Thank you. We're adjourned. Have a good evening, gentlemen.
Thank you.